I'm Shreya Brol. I'm a child counselor. I've been working with children from all ages, and it's been 7 years since I'm doing this. A psychologist can also do a role of a counselor, but a counselor studies more in depth about how to deal with the client, how do we deal with the patient, and that's the major difference. It's not like now we are in a rat race. We've always been in this race. What has changed now is parents have sort of widened their perspective. Now, let's say 10 years back, they never thought of making their child an influencer. But now they're okay with it. Fathers are no more playing that role of, providing. They are also present, right? And mothers are no more just, sitting with the child and just nurturing them. So they're also going out and working. So in recent times, things have changed. If a child is smoking or drinking at an early age, it's a coping mechanism. So we have to look deep within. Is it from a trauma? Is the environment of the house not okay? Is the child not in a good company? So all of these things matter. So you need to sit and understand what is really happening. And usually trauma leads to all of this.
Welcome to the show.
Hi Saisha.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. What about you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. Could you introduce yourself for the audience?
Alright Saisha, so I'm Shreya Brol. I'm a child counselor. I've been working with children from all ages, and it's been 7 years since I'm doing this. My expertise are in play therapy and also parental guidance.
Alright. Can you explain the difference between a psychologist and a counselor?
So see, counseling is a branch of psychology. A psychologist can also do a role of a counselor, but a counselor studies more in depth about how to deal with the client, how do we deal with the patient, and that's the major difference.
Let's focus on the parenting part.
Yeah.
Because from a very young age, we are told you should be you should get the first grade. There's too much of pressure on the kids.
Right.
So how do you deal with that?
So if you talk about academic pressure, it's always been there. It's nothing new. It's not like now we are in a rat race. We've always been in this race. What has changed now is parents have sort of widened their perspective. Now, let's say 10 years back, they never thought of making their child an influencer. But now they're okay with it. So things are changing. And when they are in a confusion, they go to a psychologist, they get the child tested for aptitude, for intelligence, for personality, and that's how, things are changing. But rat race was always there, and I think it will always be there.
But how do we change that? How do we change parents' point of view?
So parents don't do this with a bad intention. What they're trying to do is that, your child should be independent, should be earning well. That's the ultimate goal. Whenever you have a child, I always tell parents this. The ultimate goal is that the child should be independent. So there is no bad intention that, we are pressurizing our kid to do this and that. They're doing it with a good intention. And how do we change that? It's only when we sit with the child, we talk to the child. Sometimes we say, Acha, your brother is an engineer, you have to be an engineer.
Right.
Your brother is a doctor, and look at him, he's doing so well in US, so you also have to go to US. But maybe your child doesn't really want that. So before deciding on a career, let's just sit, have that conversation, and then maybe go to a psychologist and get your child tested for what they want to do.
Right. The comparison should...
Yeah, comparison is thief of joy for sure. So that needs to end, and I think it is now changing. Parents have this, they've changed. Now they don't want their children to do those jobs only. And if they have struggled, they don't want their child to struggle so much. Things are changing, but it will take its time for sure.
Like you said, they don't want their child to struggle. But if you get things easily, definitely you're a spoiled kid. And talking about being a spoiled kid, people are getting into drugs. Weed is becoming super common. Vape, smoking, it's very common and at a very young age. So how do we deal with that?
So if I look into it, it's often a coping mechanism, If a child is smoking or drinking at an early age, it's a coping mechanism. So we have to look deep within. Is it from a trauma? Is the environment of the house not okay? Is the child not in a good company? So all of these things matter. So you need to sit and understand what is really happening. And usually trauma leads to all of this. And yes, society is changing. It is common. So then the core values of parents, we didn't do it because of the core values, right? So what you instill in your child will ultimately reflect.
Right. So if there is somebody who's deep into either of the three, vaping, drugs, or smoking, how can a person come out of it?
See how it's not going to be an easy journey.
Definitely.
Because there's going to be withdrawal symptoms. But the best thing is if the parents sit with the child and they, sort of comfort the child rather than scaring the child. Oh, tumne ye kya kar diya? Rather saying it's okay. We'll get out of it. Patience, seeking the right treatment, which is extremely important. You can go to a psychologist and then, therapy starts. You can do so many therapies with somebody, who's going through this. And then finding the root cause of it. What led to it? Often children start doing this just because of peer pressure. They don't want to do it, and then it's a trap. There's no ending.
Right.
And if the parent catches the child or the teacher or somebody, a nice friend, sometimes friends stop each other.
100%.
Right. So if you find that one nice person who stops the child, then the cycle of course stops.
How can we stop this cycle? And if there is nobody to guide and we're scared of our parents, then what?
There's so many pages online where you can seek help. So you can go to your mom or maybe your dad. But if you're scared, you can still, go to your school counselor. If you're in school, you can definitely go to a school counselor. I mean, every school now has a counselor. CBSE has made it mandatory. So you can go to your school counselor and, they'll guide you with it.
Moving forward, what is the role of a mother and a father? Because not often people know how to split these roles. Fathers are busy earning money and they're in this rat race. Whereas in countries, the roles are divided. So if suppose a mother is going to work in the evening, the father is taking care in the evening. In the morning, if a father is going for work, the mother is taking care. So the workload, everything is divided. How do we manage that in India?
Sasha, from what I've seen in recent times, things have really changed. Fathers are no more playing that role of, providing. They are also present, right? And mothers are no more just, sitting with the child and just nurturing them. So they are also going out and working. So in recent times, things have changed. I don't see fathers anymore not turning for a PTM, which is such a big thing now. Fathers are present. They're there for the admissions also. They're doing everything. I see parents are equally working towards the child. Mothers are working. Gone are the times when, women used to sit at home and just nurture the child. Fathers are as nurturing. Mothers are now the supermodels and superheroes to their...
But that is Gen Z and the coming generation. But what about the people?
No, I'm talking about the generation which I am dealing with, the children I deal with. I hardly see this now that, gender roles not really relevant anymore. Parenting has changed. Earlier parenting क्या होता था? Parenting होता था कि okay, my father did this to me, so this worked for me. Now I'm going to do this to my child, right? It's still somehow people do that, they copy paste, but now things have changed. They see this generation is altogether different. You can't really compare us to Gen Z. The kind of parenting style worked on me is not going to work on my child, right? So things have really, really changed. I genuinely see fathers being equally involved, if not more.
So what is the right way to parent?
Oh wow, that's a difficult question. To each its own. I mean, there's no notebook. There's no book that you can open and say, okay, मुझे ऐसा parenting style चाहिए. See, theories के according, the right parenting style is authoritative style parenting, which means that there has to be a balance. Now, authoritative sounds like authority, but not really. There has to be a balance. You have to create boundaries, but also be very loving. Now, a lot of time parents come to me and they say, we are best friends with our child.
Yeah.
And then I feel, no, you're not supposed to be best friends with your child. Their peers are supposed to be best friends with them. You need to do your task of parenting as well. So strict boundaries, but also a lot of love. Your child shouldn't be scared.
Right.
Shouldn't be terrified. Oh, मुझे घर जाके मैं कैसे बताऊंगा? You know, I scored less marks. No, there should be room for all of that, but then also boundaries. When a father says or a mother says, okay, no screen time, so no screen time. If you've not set any boundaries, then the child will never take you seriously, and that's where the problem really begins.
As you mentioned, screen time, it's very common. So even a small baby who wants to eat food, there is the screen, right? Yeah. How do we get rid of it? And what would you advise those new mamas?
There's nothing like idle screen time. According to me, under the age of 3, absolutely no screens.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but also, I mean, it's a tool and a trap. Now you have to decide. So, tech literacy is really important. You should make your child know this is real content and this is curated. They should know the difference. Now, with AI, things are literally out of hand. So, the difference should be there. And also screen times, I mean, there should be tech-free zones. You should make sure that, you know, you're spending that time with the child where, you know, the child is not rooting for a screen. Also, while you're feeding a child, absolutely no. You know, food is not going to nurture the child.
Right.
Our mothers never used to put us in front of a screen. We were, you know, carried all around the house. There was helicopters coming.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's gone. That's
Right.
absolutely gone. Now the child is glued. They get you into an ocular fix. So your eyes are locked. And when you call the child, they're not even listening. You can just say the name 10 times and they'll not respond. And that's the problem. So the food is not nurturing you. With screen times, it's tricky. Sometimes, you know, just to get some peace, we're like, okay, दे दो screen. पर वहीं problem शुरू हो जाता है. So strict rules, maybe, you know, 30 minutes a day, 15 after lunch, 15 after dinner, or maybe before dinner. Actually, never at night, because then they don't want to sleep. You know?
Talking about sleep, what is the right sleep pattern and how much a child should get? Like, at what age a child should get how many hours of sleep?
So, you know, children should ideally get 8 hours of sleep. Like with adults, 6 hours is still good, doable. But with children, 8 to 9 hours is good. So there should be a fixed time. And also, I suggest parents, there should be some bedtime rituals. You know what I mean by bedtime rituals is when you are in bed with your child, you get their undivided attention. You know, they're not thinking of anything else. So what you can do is, you know, maybe cuddle them, talk to them. Okay, you know, what were the 5 nice things about your days? What do you want to do differently tomorrow? So that ritual is very important at bedtime, more than, you know, timing. आपको 8 o'clock सोना है तो सोना है. उससे अच्छा है, you know, 7:30 sit with your child in bed, prep them, talk to them. How was your day? What did you learn? What would you want to do differently tomorrow? So these things, rituals, really matter.
Okay, just the way you said bedtime ritual. Is there any other ritual a person should follow?
Oh, well, you must take care of your mental health. And then for that, you need to make a few rituals, maybe a gratitude journal, maybe sleeping on time, or maybe doing something for your body which makes you feel happy. So these rituals, of course, they're important for you. So maybe you can start with that, something as simple as writing 5 things you're grateful for in a day.
What is your spiritual aspect to it? Like, a lot of people, they want their kid to get into spirituality, but at the generations to come, it's cutting down. Because at my age, I would not leave for school without going to a temple. So how can we inculcate that in the coming generation?
So Saisha, how did you start going to the temple? Because I'm sure you saw your mother doing it, your father doing it. So, you know, you should model what you want from your child. As a parent, you need to model the certain behavior that you're looking for in your child. For example, now you tell your child at 6 a.m. every day you need to get up and do yoga. But you're waking up at 10 a.m. Do you think the child will ever get up? Never, right? So similarly, if you want your child to be spiritual, you have to set that image that, you know, mother is also doing it, father is also doing it, and the child will automatically start doing it. So it's important that you model what you want from the child.
What are the common problems that kids are facing today, and how can we solve that?
I think bullying, of course, it's always been there, And I think the most problematic thing is that children are scared to talk about it, right? So when they come to me and they talk about bullying, sometimes I really feel, okay, wow, the pain that they're going through, it's just too much, right? That's one thing. Bullying, it's still the same, and I don't know how things will change. That's one thing. Secondly, a lot of peer pressure. So children, they want the same shoes, same car, whatever they see. No, also they're so fragile. It's not that they have bad intentions or they want to trouble someone. It's just that they're fragile, and then they see things.
Want to imitate and
yes,
copy, right?
yeah, that's another thing. And then academic pressure for sure. Yeah, these three things I see a lot.
So when you're counseling a kid, do you also counsel the parent?
Of course. Like I said, I do play therapy and parental guidance. They go hand in hand. I mean, I can't be working on the child and not involving the parent, right? It's impossible. There'll be no result.
Mm-hmm. With bullying, what if somebody is going through this phase? How do you help them to get out of it?
So with bullying, first of all, reporting takes time. So when we get there and the child has reported everything, then we of course involve parents as well, because it's a lot of trauma. For us, it's a small thing. Maybe किसी ने किसी को कुछ बोल दिया तो वो छोटी बात है, because we've grown out of that. But for them, it means the world to them. So then we involve the parents, and parents and I work together to get the child out of that. Because like I said, if you're not working on it, the child can go for coping mechanisms like vaping or smoking right? So that's how it happens. And also a lot of times I work with them when I do play therapy, and I tell them the perspective of the bully also. Sometimes people who bully, they're hurt as well. They've been bullied too. So it's a circle. So sometimes you have to show them that, and you have to teach them to be more empathetic rather than hating on it.
Yeah. If somebody doesn't know their identity, what I mean by identity is whether they are gay, lesbian, bisexual, anything related to LGBT, how do you help them?
So often children say when they're 13, 14, they're confused. Yeah, they don't know and they want to experiment. So that's when, first of all, they really don't like talking about it. This is an age where the more you try to talk to them, they are going to run away from you. But if at all they come to me, we discuss this in depth. We see what is it that is, what has led them towards being so confused. And we sort of work on it. We take a session wherein we talk about it. We also involve friends in it if they're okay with it. So it's a very heartwarming session where then they finally come out and they tell about us.
So nowadays people are getting divorced, there's a lot of family dispute. Like I was in a boarding school, and 50% of the people were from families with disputes, and they would be sent to a boarding. How do you manage, because you're already going through the trauma of your parents separating, and then you're away from them? So how do you handle the two?
So see, you are right, absolutely. When there's turmoil at home and parents are not happy together, it makes sense to send the child away, because you would not want that trauma to be a part of your child's life. So they do that with good intent. But for a child, it's hard because, there's anxiety. What's happening back home? Are they even together? Are they fighting? Is my mother safe? Is my father safe? So they are going through all of that. Now, how do you deal with it? For what I know, all boarding schools, they have amazing counselors and they have amazing wardens where they take care of the child. So they are in a better place for sure. But the trauma that the child somehow, gets from what he's seen at home becomes a problem if they don't go to therapy. Then later in their life, when they have relationships, they are a little scared. They are a little insecure. They hold on too tight. So that's the problem.
Yeah. Talking about relationships, nowadays it's a very common phrase. People say we have fear of abandonment. So what do you have to say about it? And how do you get rid of the fear of abandonment?
So see, again, comes from some trauma. We are not born with it. We're all born to love. Now, if you see a small child, they just all they want is love. They'll be happy with little things. So it comes from a place of trauma. Maybe they've seen things like that with their friends, family. Sometimes, even with parents of their friends, they see trauma and then they feel, okay, separation anxiety, abandonment, all of that, starts to happen. Now, how do you deal with it? Well, love is what they need. So it can come from a parent, from a friend, from a teacher, or maybe from a counselor. And then, it's an ongoing journey.
So there's this movie called Tare Zameen Par, and like there are similar problems that nowadays people are facing, and parents are not aware of it, teachers are not aware of it, and you just label a kid, which is not the right thing to do. How do we manage all of that, and what is the right guidance to parents and teachers?
So see, you should always, as a parent, see the milestones, that if the child is walking at the right age, writing at the right age, speaking at the right age, and if there's a developmental delay, then go to somebody who can give you a proper diagnosis rather than just labeling. Rather than just saying, oh, he's a slow learner. Array, his father was also like this. He'll, catch up. So there are so many things. There's ADHD. The child is just running around. You just can't just say he's running around the room, so he has ADHD. There has to be a proper diagnosis. There are tests that we do with children. Parents are involved, and that's how we come to a diagnosis. So labeling anyway is not, first of all, allowed. Shouldn't be done. Secondly, don't just sit and assume. Go for it, go for a diagnosis, and the doctor or the psychologist will help you through this journey. You can't do it alone.
Right. You mentioned right age for walking, speaking. Can you elaborate that, and can you explain what is the right age?
So there is, if you Google it, or even the doctors will tell you that the child should ideally be smiling at 3 months, should be smiling back at 3 months, or at 6 months sitting, at after 1 year should be taking first steps or trying to walk a little, and by 9 months crawling, and by a year and a half should be speaking ideally. So these things matter, and this is how, when even if I do a diagnosis, I have to see all of these things. Were the milestones on time? If they were not, then that's a little problematic, and then we sit and do a proper diagnosis. And then there's a huge list, even for babbling, even for speaking first, uttering the first word. All of this, there's a huge list.
Okay. If somebody is diagnosed with ADHD, how can we come out of it?
Coming out of it, not really. You have to live with it. That's why it's called children with ADHD, not like ADHD, Khali. It's called children with ADHD. So you have to live with it. And as you grow, it becomes a part of your life. You come up with coping mechanisms. For example, a few years back, fidget spinner was really, it was really in. So that calms you down, right? Things like that. And then if a child has ADHD, there are provisions by CBSE. We make sure the child gets some free space in the class to move around, maybe take water breaks more frequently. And then if the child is going for board exams, there's a scribe who can write on his behalf. So there's so many provisions. So it's not really a problem, and the child has to live with it. It's never going to end.
So what are the signs
of ADHD? So it's called attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So not sitting idly, very impulsive, not able to make decisions, and running around here and there. Attention span is comparatively shorter. Like, for example, a normal child who is not having ADHD can probably read for 2 minutes, but a child with ADHD will probably sit for 20 seconds and be like, okay, I need to take a nap. Because there's so much of pent-up energy that they need to.
But do you think it's becoming common? Because if you see watching a reel also, the attention span is decreasing, right? We like to fast forward it. So do you think that is gonna hamper the child?
Yeah, attention span is smaller. Even now when I take sessions with parents, I make sure it's not like a half an hour session, because nobody has that energy to sit. So also, but all these disabilities, The latest research says they're growing at a faster pace. For example, autism, I mean, in 90s, 1,000 में से एक बच्चा. Now it's 1 in every 60 child. So it's a spectrum though. Not everybody is very low functioning. Some children are extremely high functioning also. Things are changing now. Technology has taken over. Attention span is smaller, and screens are always there. Nobody has patience also. Like I said, that you want your child to be in front of a screen while eating. Earlier, mothers used to carry them all around the house. So yes.
So how can we increase our attention span?
So with ADHD children or children who don't like to sit idle or they don't have attention span, what we do is we tell parents to start slow. Don't expect the child suddenly one day will start sitting for 15 minutes without a break. For example, the child is sitting for 2 minutes. You can start with this that, okay, beta, today we'll sit for, say, 2.5 minutes. And then there's some reward. Now, the reward has to be, it cannot be materialistic. The reward cannot be materialistic. Once you start giving materialistic rewards, it's a problem. So it's appreciation, it's love, it's patting, it's hug. That's what you need to do. And then eventually, the attention span starts to grow because there's so much of validation the child is getting from the parent. Yeah.
Talking about validation, at a young age, when you don't get validation, I've seen people are seeking that from the outside. And when you get into a relationship, people want that validation, and if they don't get it from that person, they just switch really quick. So how do we manage that?
So see, validation is what people are also seeking on Instagram and all these social media platforms. That's where the problem is. Children are using Instagram the entire day. They're looking at likes and comments. Now, how do you deal with that? Again, love. The moment they get that love, they get that validation from their parents, you stop seeking it. And that's how you raise a confident child. Yeah, so it's important where the child is coming from and how much love and how have you nurtured your child. So they will never seek validation if they're happy at home. So creating that environment where the child is happy, content, so I don't think they'll ever seek validation.
Anxiety and depression is on the rise. How do we manage anxiety? And at a very young age, people are getting depressed. How do we manage it?
So anxiety and depression, first of all, you need to be clear. What is it? Sometimes it's a panic attack and you don't know what to do about it. Anxiety also, you need to see where is it coming from. Is it separation anxiety, which usually happens in children? Also, earlier I used to see cases where parents, they were too close to the child. So whenever the child would go to school, there was separation anxiety. But now I also see separation anxiety from friends. Children going away, friend changing a school or a section. Child becomes really timid and they want to cry the whole day. So that's happening. And then depression is another thing altogether. There are clear signs. There's loss of appetite or too much eating. Binge eating, that's a way of coping with it, and darkness and not stepping out, loving darkness, not talking to anyone. So anxiety is different, depression is different. First of all, we need to know what is it. Secondly, where is it coming from? And then therapy. Therapy is the only way out. So cognitive behavioral therapy, where we work on the patterns of behavior, and that eventually makes a change.
Right. Talking about behavioral therapy, can you explain what are the early signs of behavior when we get, like you said, anxiety? How would a child react when they would have a separation anxiety?
Crying, of course, because they don't know what to do. And we all cry when we don't know what to do. That's one thing. Food is the biggest sign. If your child has out of nowhere stopped eating, that's one big symptom. Or eating too much, that's also a problem with anxiety. Some people feel extremely hungry. And then if the child is not talking to you, not being with its usual self, basically. Anger, throwing things. Yeah, that's also a way of coping up with anxiety. So these are the early symptoms, and if you find these symptoms in your child, you must talk to somebody for help.
Right. Talking about divorce, people or single mom or single dads, they don't know how to raise the child by themselves. What can they do?
So, tips for a single parent, or what they can do if they don't have that kind of support, is being involved, having a good rapport with the school. Very, very important, because when you're at work, your child is at school. Major part of their time is at school. So, you know, you need to be in constant touch with the teacher or the mother teacher if the child is smaller. That's one thing. Thirdly, I feel open communication. You know, every day you need to sit with your child, make sure that, you know, they are doing good, you are doing good together. It's a good team. And rituals, as I said, you know, going out, maybe a movie night at home, maybe cooking together, these things that bring you together. And also, if they're grandparents, they play a major role. You know, teaching cultural values, it comes from them. So maybe involve them, and then we're good to go.
So, since you're a play therapist, what is the relevance of play therapy?
Okay, so play in general is essential for us. Humans need to play. Even at our age, we should be playing something or the other. It keeps your mind active, and for a child, it's essential. So because they do different kinds of playing. You know, when they're playing, say, ghar ghar, you know, it's imaginary playing. They're developing that sense of imagination. When they're solving puzzles, they're thinking of abstract thinking. You know, they're trying to fit in small things. And when they're playing with peers, like in a, let's say, team sport, they're learning friendships. So play is essential for all of us. Even at this age, we should be making a constant effort to be playing something. So for children, it works wonderfully, and I urge all the parents to make sure that your child is playing one sport a day, because, you know, pent-up energy somehow releases. The child is more calm and relaxed. They come back home with a lighter mood. So playing is important, non-negotiable. You have to make sure that your child is playing at least 40 to 15 minutes a day, rather than just, you know, sticking to a PS5 or like whatever, you know, new gadgets that they, yeah.
Outdoor sports, maybe.
Oh yes, of course, that's what, you know, it's non-negotiable. You have to send your child out to play. You know, we can't be sitting in a room the entire day.
So there's this movie which is making headlines. It's called Adolescence, and it is on Netflix. What do you have to say about it, and what is shown in the movie? Is it the right thing?
So it happens, can't deny. Because bullying online is big. That's why we have cyberbullying cells, and there's police monitoring all of that. But the right thing is that we, with our child, create that sort of relationship where the child is not hiding things or making their account private and not following you because they're so scared of you. Yeah, so it should be done in the right way. Your child should be sharing things with you, and you should be monitoring their social media. It should be made very clear from the beginning. For example, at the age of 14, you're giving your child an Instagram account or Snapchat account. You must sit with your child and make it clear. Like I said, authoritative parenting, boundaries are clear. So make sure boundaries are clear. You tell that child that, okay, I am going to monitor your social media. Create that relationship where the child is not scared of you.
Virat Kohli and Anushka have taken a decision not to get their child on camera. And similarly, there are a lot of celebs. Their child is in front of the camera. There are paps. The child, if they behave in a not so nice manner, they have been trolled, and there's a lot that goes behind. What do you have to say to them, and is it okay? Because according to me, I feel the child doesn't know anything, and it is okay to behave how they want to. But we put this pressure because we say, acha uska beta hai, acha uski beti hai, so they should be a certain way, and the society is so judgmental. So how do we handle?
So I'm sure they have done it because they know that world is not a very kind place. So people are going to talk about it, and I think it makes sense. Your child's privacy is everything. Even if when we deal with children, we never, talk about the child, we maintain the privacy. So privacy of a child is important, and I sort of align with that, that idea of not putting your child out there. I feel privacy is power. The child shouldn't be spoken of, because then you're sort of limiting their self beliefs. Like I said, then they will seek validation. They will not be comfortable when they'll get to know, okay, people were talking so much about me. So the avenues to grow more, learn more, sort of stops for them.
So as we are coming to an end, I just wanted you to give some tips for parents, how to go about the rituals as you mentioned, and is there something that you want to add on?
So the only message that I like to give to parents is that parenting is not about providing. It's also about being present. So be there. That's very, very important. Your child is making core memories with you, learning from you. So be there for your child. That's very important. Create rituals where the child feels connected to you, and make sure you're present for the child and you're doing everything that they will remember when they grow up. Yeah.
So communication is the key.
Yes, it is, of course. Yeah. Being present is the key. Not running away. When you need your me time, do it. But also always remember, parenting is a selfless job. So you can't be just, thinking, okay, now today I'm done. It's never going to get over. Once a parent, always a parent.
Right. Like you said, me time. There are a lot of people, they don't know how to go about things and they take out the frustration on the kid. So, how can we get rid of that and how can we manage it?
So me time is essential because we all burn out. So do you, so do I. So then what do we do about it? For me, I think maybe gardening or working out works. So I sort of relax after that. Similarly, for the parents, they need to understand how do they take that me time out and not get frustrated. So sit and understand, is journaling working for you, or taking a walk working for you? Maybe cooking is working for you, or maybe as a couple going out on a dinner date is working for you. Do these things so that you're not frustrated, because it is a very time-consuming, overwhelming job. Parenting is an all-time job. There's no end to it, like I said. So make sure you have time for yourself.
Thank you so much. It was lovely having you on the show.
Thank you, Saisha. I'm glad somebody's talking about children. Usually what happens is when we talk about mental health, we think of adults. We never think about children. But children as young as 2, they have signs of depression and whatnot, right? So it's really nice that you've thought of, calling a child psychologist. So yeah, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Like,
Share
subscribe
to Dopamine High.
Thank you.
Thank you.